Hello, I'm Askar Sharlief and you're watching the news from Kazakhstan, and these are the headlines. Public committee over the incident at Arkan-Kergen checkpoint started its work in Almaty. MPs talk of crisis within the military. Vice Premier Serik Akhmetov arrived in Zhanaozen for the first time after the December riots, remaining satisfied with the progress of restoration of Oil Town. Almaty homeless receives his apartment back by court decision after 3 years of living in detention center for the homeless. Infamous Zhanaozen welcomed high guests on Thursday. For the last 6 months, city was under restoration. In June, the facades of homes were decorated. There were rumors that Nazarbayev himself or Prime Minister Masimov will visit the town. However, instead it was Serik Akhmetov, the vice premier, who arrived with an official visit.
Members of the media were prohibited in advance to direct any questions to visitors from Astana, and journalists were even placed in a separate bus. The governor of the Mangistau region, Baurjan Makhmedjanov, and mayor of Zhanaozen, Serik Baytrumov, began their tour at the new apartment block, then proceeded to the restored shop Sulpak, destroyed during the December riots, and later to the Kazakh gas processing plant, which sustained an explosion on June 6, severely wounding one employee. The director of the plant has yet to establish the final cause of the incident, but assured everyone that gas supplies will be restored by 90% at the beginning of next week. The reconstruction works are almost complete and we are ready to launch the plant. At the moment, we are finishing up and the plant will start its operation already on Friday. The plant has already reached 90% production capacity and it will reach 100% by Sunday or Monday. It became known later that the Deputy Prime Minister Serik Akhmetov visited the camp for the Interior Ministry troops, the construction of which was launched 4 months after the riots in Zhanaozen. It was reported that the deadline for its completion is December 2013. Notably, this part of the tour was held without journalists, who were admitted to a limited number of sites, one of which was the company Kazmunaygas, where a prototype of the enterprise's future building was presented to Akhmetov. Dear colleagues, as a working group, we have visited a number of sites in Zhanaozen. In general, the tour showed a positive trend in the implementation of comprehensive plans for social and economic development of the town, which was adopted by the government at the president's order. The planned stages of this project are being implemented in accordance with approved schedules.
The wives of imprisoned oil workers who were sentenced to various prison terms for participation in mass riots in Zhanaozen also met with Vice Prime Minister. According to the women, Akhmetov's plan for the visit did not include a meeting with them. Nevertheless, they managed to insist, and on Thursday afternoon they were allowed to meet with high-ranking official. Over the phone, Shamsharak Nepes, the wife of the sentenced to 3 years in prison, Baurjan Nepes, recalled that some officials from city administration tried to prevent a meeting by insulting them. They were not allowed to enter the city administration building by trying to make an appointment to a different date. But in the end, the wives were able to reach the first Vice Prime Minister. They all had the same demand to release the illegally accused oil workers. However, it was clear that Akhmetov was unable to help them. The women of Zhanaozen then asked him to at least deliver their letter to Nursultan Nazarbayev.
Yes, we all went there and demanded only one thing, the release of our husbands, 13 oil workers who were unfairly imprisoned. This is our general demand. My husband, for example, is a guardian and was sentenced to 3 years. I asked whether it is legal to imprison a man who, besides his own children, is raising adopted kids. I was told that it's illegal. So I asked why he is thrown in jail then, and I was told that it happened only because his lawyer was weak and I should file an appeal. We composed a letter on behalf of everyone who came and asked him to deliver it for us. This letter was supported by all who demand the release of 13 oil workers.
Well-known human rights activist Evgeny Zhovtis wrote an article which was published on Thursday by Human Rights Bureau. In it, the lawyer is outraged by the fact that often Kazakh authorities take illegal, unjustified and unfair decisions. He notes that it is or may lead to radicalization of society and provides an example of the ban on peaceful assemblies.
It is wrong to use administrative 15-day arrests against people just because they peacefully gathered to express their opinion, even if they had no authorization. It is unreasonable and unjust to prohibit peaceful assemblies and arrest organizers. This will lead nowhere except the radicalization of public sentiment. Zhovtis cautions the authorities by stating that it should not make unjust or unreasonable decisions and hope that society will stay tolerant and silent. The authorities should consider, for example, the impact of events in Shenarag, Bakay and Zhanaozen. Human rights activist says that the absence of rationality and justice not only reduces the credibility of the country's leader, but also the credibility of the political power institution. It is wrong to sentence striking oil workers of Zhanaozen to long prison terms just because their 7-month-long peaceful protest turned into a mass riot with subsequent violence and arsons because of provocations. Oil workers' personal responsibility for taking part in these riots was not proved, and they also were fired upon by unprepared and unprofessional policemen. No matter what clauses the judge used, his verdict will not be perceived by the public as just, especially considering the result of the policeman trial.
Zhanaozen authorities commented on the dismantling of satellite dishes. As was reported by Mayor Serikbay Trumov, they disturb the architectural view of the city. However, if residents will demand to return private property back, administration is willing to make concessions.
The dismantling of satellite dishes in Zhanaozen is just a city beautification measure, explained local authorities. The newly appointed Mayor Serikbay Trumov said this has nothing to do with censorship of information. In addition to painting and paving roads, we are also dismantling satellite dishes. We remove them with the consent of residents. Beautification is the only reason why we do that. We have nothing against K+. Every citizen is entitled to choose what to watch. Should people demand to return their property, we are ready to make concessions. This Zhanaozen resident, however, did not give her consent to anyone. Shamshurak, the wife of convicted oil worker Baojan Nipes, told journalists that her dish, which was specifically installed to receive K+, has mysteriously disappeared from the roof. It was replaced with a Otao TV dish and a basic package of state channels. My satellite dish was receiving K+. I recently bought it to watch the trial because other channels don't properly cover it. Now it's gone. I was told that people from the administration have taken it. They took all satellite dishes except for Otao TV. If they dismantle all dishes, why would they leave the Otao TV dishes? Public activists and representatives of Adil Söz, the International Foundation for the Protection of Freedom of Speech, have responded to the so-called beautification campaign. The dismantling is directly caused by the law on broadcasting and is an attempt to control TV content, experts said. Well-known human rights activist Yevgeny Zhovits even drew parallels between the actions of democratic Kazakhstan government and the authoritarian Turkmenistan. These attempts in Zhanaozen are nothing new. Turkmenbashi did the same thing when he was alive. In Ashgabat, Turkmenistan, they took down satellite dishes first on main streets, then in all districts, explaining it exactly the same, with beautification motives and supposedly for making all building facades look the same, something that dishes prevented. Kazakhstan authorities have outlawed satellite dishes in the past as well. Then it was related to another independent media. Last fall, Sanitary and Epidemiological Service said that equipment located on the roof of Stan KZ office was hazardous, which was later disproved by an independent examination. Nevertheless, the judge ruled to dismantle the dish upon several hearings.
The investigation continues in the case of the surviving guard at the Kazakh-Chinese border. The most discussed topic of the day is Vladislav Chelak's role in the murder of 14 fellow soldiers and a retired major. Most are of the opinion that the young man was made into a scapegoat. State agencies in turn persuade the public to the contrary. Meanwhile, public figures decided to take matters under public control. More details in the next report.
I promise that as public figures, we will not ignore but monitor and intervene in this situation. An independent public committee was presented to the public on Thursday in Almaty. Its activists are committed to assist an impartial investigation of the events at the Arkhan-Kirgen outpost in the Almaty region. They hope the authorities will include them in the state committee and allow their participation in the investigation. If the authorities will decline the voluntary free-of-charge assistance of our experts, they will prove once again this case is not a simple matter and they intend to cover it up. It will then imply that the authorities indeed want to hide what's really happened. The committee consists of human rights activists, journalists and NGO representatives. On Thursday, Kazakhstan International Bureau for Human Rights and Rule of Law published its statement explaining why the incident investigation at Arkhan-Kirgen outpost seems shady to the public. The official version has numerous discrepancies and is illogical. The mere fact that the investigation failed to voice a clear motive for the crime, with the defendant mentally fit, does not allow its unconditional acceptance. An attempt to present interpersonal conflict as a motive is unconvincing. The grandfather of Vladislav Chelak has joined the committee as well, insisting his grandson is innocent. He believes that a confession was made under exerted pressure and asked all supporters not to resort to illegal steps. Please collect signatures under the petition and publish them in one of the newspapers. This will be more efficient than holding rallies outside the NSC building. Otherwise, they will say that we're trying to make some provocations. In my opinion, there is no need for things like that. In the near future, the committee plans to set up a website with all the important information about the highest profile case of the moment.
Senators who are retired generals began talking about the systematic crisis in the Kazakh army. The ex-defense minister Mukhtar Altunbayev argues the terrible tragedy at the Arkan-Kergen border outpost could have been avoided had there been no crisis. The parliamentarian believes there is an evidently gross violation of army rules by the border guards. The well-known Kazakh psychic Bahidjan Jumatova agrees with him in part. However, the official version of the event divides their views, much like the frontier itself. The psychic flatly denies the lead that suspected Vladislav Chelakh is guilty, while the former commander urges to slow down and wait for the results of the investigation.
Kazakhstan's army is in crisis. Statements such as this are rarely made by MPs, and especially by those who came from the general's ranks. The tragedy at the Arkan-Kergen border checkpost, where 14 soldiers were killed along with a retired major, led MPs to the revelation that something is wrong with the military discipline. If such a tragedy took place, then it means there were multiple violations, including the violation of military and border patrol service regulations, as well as violations of founding principles of border guard service. I believe there were all kinds of violations, such as negligence, violations of general principles, and so on. In general, military discipline was undermined, which means someone neglected their official duties. However, MPs are very careful with their assessment of possible reasons for this tragedy. They are reluctant to offer their own theories of what happened and comment on the official one. When the generals were asked whether it was possible for a single soldier to kill the entire unit, they replied in military fashion, "Everything is possible." Meanwhile, in their own search for truth, reporters are seeking it from politicians, military men, sociologists, psychologists, and even psychics due to the shortage of official data. Chelakh couldn't do that unless he was under the influence of some kind of psychotropic drug. Therefore, his blood should be tested. A well-known Kazakhstan psychic, Bahidjan Jumatova, doesn't believe Vladislav Chelakh's testimonies, saying otherworldly forces suggest he is innocent. On the day of the tragedy, the psychics see a group of 15 men with a lot of weapons at the site of tragedy, but they were not border guards. Psychic does not rule out that the brutal massacre was the work of internal extremists. In my visions, I see a car approaching the site. I see some people. They are Kazakhs because they're speaking Kazakh. They are extremists who have hostile views against Kazakhstan, but I'm 85% sure that Chelakh is innocent. I hope he will stay alive until the trials. Despite the fact that the investigating authorities released the video of Chelakh's testimonies, there are still a lot of people doubting the official theory. In fact, their numbers are growing, as is the number of unofficial explanations of the incident. Despite numerous assumptions, no one seems to believe Chelakh could have committed such a crime in cold blood because he disliked his fellow soldiers. Moreover, internet users found holes in the investigation which undermine its results.
Vremya newspaper continues to publish its own leads of what took place at the Arkan border outposts. In a new article, Gennady Benditsky once again recalls women's underwear allegedly found on one of the soldiers. The journalist, known for his sources within law enforcement agencies, says it was found on the huntsman Ruslan Kim. Allegedly, he was of non-traditional sexual orientation. Benditsky suggests this could serve as the motive for the mass murder, which, according to official reports, was committed by Vladislav Chelakh.
In addition, the article states that the 48-year-old Reserve Mayor Kim was known for wearing figure-flattering tight pants with high waist. He openly bought lingerie at women's clothing boutiques and preferred semi-transparent delicate panties. Supposedly, the man had quite a complicated relationship with his family, and many say that it was the main reason for leaving his hometown of Taldykargan. Benditsky's article stirred a controversy, although most readers do not believe him. I would not bet on the hazing. Those who served in the military know that if a soldier has constant contact with firearms, the relations between the soldiers are extremely polite. Even officers behave well with privates. Finally, they found the motive. Otherwise, it looked like Chelakh just killed them all for no reason. Now it is okay. We have a whole set and people supposedly should buy it. Tomorrow, he will be forced to confess on camera that for 17 days he slept with Kim. This is ridiculous.
Internet users are also arguing about the guilt or innocence of Vladislav Chelakh. The statement and video confessions published by the prosecutor's office divided the internet community into two camps. Mukhtar Tayjan expressed his opinion on his Facebook page. After watching the video, his verdict is guilty. However, blogger and journalist Gulnara Bashkenova believes there are more grounds to distrust the general prosecutor's statement rather than Vladislav Chelakh's confession.
I don't rule out the possibility that the killer is indeed this young man Chelip. I wonder where this 100% certainty that he didn't do it comes from. I carefully watched the uploaded video twice. It describes very clearly and in detail who was where, how he shot them, which weapon he used, that the soldiers were on their beds, that their feet could be seen, who was behind the door, etc., as if he witnessed it all. Of course, it is early to make conclusions. There is a need for an open trial, detailed ballistics, and other types of expertise to check this testimony, or at least the lie detector test. We are ready to believe anything, even that the outpost was attacked by Martians, but we don't believe the statements of the Prosecutor General representative. Chinese invasion, drug trafficking, VIP hunters who have left one soldier alive on purpose so that he could admit the guilt, but this is no better than the version with Martians. Unfortunately, in this web of lies, every lead has the right for existence.
Meanwhile, the public continues to disbelieve the so-called video confession of Vladislav Chelach made available earlier by the prosecutor's office. At the surviving soldier's home in Karaganda, the published videos are put in doubt due to excessive splicing at the interrogation, literally put together word by word. Here's what people had to say.
They're making him into a scapegoat. He was the only man left alive. I think this was a border breach, and they're making him responsible to conceal this. One will admit to anything under tortures. Interrogations are very tough. They beat the confessions out of him. A person can say anything under pressure. When I looked at him, I did not believe he could have done it. I think that political issues are involved here. The guy's not responsible. This is what I think. One guy couldn't have killed everyone on his own, especially a young guy like him. It's hard to believe that such a young guy could kill 15 men. I just don't believe it. I think he was threatened by the police. He couldn't have done it alone to kill everyone. He's just an 18-year-old boy. Psychologically, he could have done it if he was angry at the entire squad, but he wasn't alone there. He had fellow soldiers by his side, the same age as he was. They would be supporting each other. I don't believe he could have done it. I think he's just a scapegoat. They did not show us the whole picture. We didn't see the most important parts.
Pensioners are once again protesting in Uralsk. The Asbergen family comes out to the demonstration for the 7th time in an attempt to return an annex, which was demolished to build a cafe to their private house. The couple went on an indefinite hunger strike.
The last time Asbergena family signed an agreement with the local administration according to which the state was to pay compensation and restore the building. It was the failure to comply with the agreement that caused the protest. The money was received, however the authorities refused to restore the ruined house. Now pensioners say they will not leave the square until their demands are met. In response, the police threatened to use force against the elderly. Asbergenovs were also brought summons to court, yet the couple refused to accept them. This time the officials ignored the hunger strikers as well. The local administration representative came outside and read the protesting posters, yet he refrained from entering talks with the seniors.
The last hearing on the case of the disabled Kairat Kuzubayev was held in the Almaty City Court. Justice sided on the incapacitated man who was left out on the street after selling an apartment in the city center for $115,000. For more than 3 years, Kairat was forced to live in a special detention center for persons with no fixed place of residence. He can now return to his apartment, although its new owners intend to dispute the court's verdict. More on the story next.
A trial involving Kairat Tukuzbayev, a 45-year-old homeless handicapped man who fell victim to a con real estate agent, ended in Almaty on Thursday. The agent sold Tukuzbayev's apartment and left him on the street, living in a homeless shelter for 2 years. Kairat is suffering from a mental disorder and is essentially a grown-up child. His guardian Galina Karzynska took the matter to the court, insisting that any deals made with mentally challenged people without the presence of legal guardians are void. The court's verdict has come into force as of today, and we hope that Mrs. Stajbaeva will voluntarily vacate the apartment in the near future, and Tukuzbayev, the handicapped man, will move in and live in his home. However, the new owners are not planning to give up easily, intending to take the issue to the Supreme Court. Karakhtan Kadyrkhanov, representative of the new owner, said that she wasn't going to move out unless there is a compensation for the amount she paid to buy the property. We paid him the money for the apartment, and it was an honest deal. He's been living and spending away the money for 2.5 years, and now he wants his apartment back. This is, of course, not the way it should be. Essentially, the guilty party in this intricate case is the real estate agent, only known as Jantas. 5 years ago, the con man won the trust of a city resident, promised to find him a one-room apartment, after which he took the money and disappeared. His name was never mentioned during the trial, and he's likely still at large. Kairat, being kind at heart, does not hold a grudge against the con artist. The most important thing for him now is to regain his home and move in there with his girlfriend and 8-year-old son. I really want to go back home. I want a normal life, live in my own apartment, as I am a family man. I want to find a job and earn my own living. You see that we can't trust anyone now, and I know that I can count on myself only. No one is going to help me. The trial wouldn't have received much publicity if media didn't take interest in the life of an ordinary homeless man. Galina Karzynska, the legal guardian, also plays a role in the story. Kairat sees very little of her, only speaking with her over the phone. The social service representative is busy to the point she can't even find time to pass him monthly retirement benefits, only allocating $35 out of $150 from time to time. It seems she believes the man does not need money in a homeless shelter, as the state supposedly takes care of him anyway.
This is all we have time for now. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned.